The quiet desk in the back row. The classroom orbited a pale blue star, and everything about it was designed to feel safe. Soft gravity, wide windows, neutral lighting calibrated to the average comfort range of 12 species. Desks adjusted automatically for limbs, tails, or wings. The Galactic Integration Academy prided itself on being the place where differences dissolved into education. Elias Ward sat in the back row. He always did, not because he was shy, though many assumed that, but because the back row let him see everything at once. Doors, ceiling ports, reflections in the glass, the faint hum of the station's power conduits beneath the floor. He had learned, long ago, that danger rarely announced itself from the front. Around him, the class buzzed with low, multi-tonal chatter. A scaled student clicked his mandibles while boasting about his species' mandatory combat rights. A tall, furred cadet flexed claws meant to rend steel. A pair of avian twins argued in rapid whistles about who ranked higher in simulated duels. Humans, as a rule, did not join these conversations. There were only 3 in the room. 2 sat together near the middle, whispering nervously. Elias sat alone. The instructor, a broad, amphibious being with eyes that rotated independently, raised one limb for silence. Today's lesson, the instructor said, voice amplified and translated seamlessly, will be a practical exercise. Autonomous combat drone response training. Several students straightened immediately. This was what they had been waiting for. Theory was dull. Simulations were tolerable. But drones, real machines, even in training mode, meant status. Rankings. Proof. Elias did not move. He only adjusted his posture slightly, placing both feet flat on the floor. Remain seated. The instructor continued. This is a stress response evaluation only. The drones are non-lethal. They will test reaction time, coordination, and decision-making under pressure. Non-lethal, Elias repeated silently. Ceiling panels slid open with a smooth hiss. 4 spherical drones descended, matte gray, each the size of a large backpack. Their lenses glowed a soft blue, the standard indicator for training configuration. The class murmured excitedly. Elias watched the drone's descent speed, a fraction too fast. The instructor tapped a control pad. Activating. The lights flickered. Just once. Barely noticeable. Most of the class missed it. Elias didn't. He felt it more than saw it. A brief stutter in the station's power rhythm, like a skipped heartbeat. His shoulders tensed by instinct, then relaxed just as quickly. He exhaled slowly through his nose. The drones hovered, silent. Then one of them twitched. Its blue lens pulsed, then shifted to red. Elias' fingers curled against the edge of his desk. No, the instructor muttered, tapping the pad again. That's not. The first shot came without warning. A bolt of plasma tore across the room, vaporizing the edge of an empty desk. The heat washed over the students like an open furnace. Someone screamed, a high, keening sound that sent panic rippling through the class. The drone's lenses all glowed red now. Emergency shut down, the instructor shouted. Nothing happened. The classroom doors slid shut with a heavy clang. Lockdown protocol. The second shot struck a student. A heavily armored cadet, one of the loudest braggarts, was thrown backward, armor glowing white-hot where the plasma had struck. He didn't move. Chaos exploded. Students leapt from their seats, instincts taking over. Those bred for combat roared and charged. Those with wings beat frantically against sealed air. Desks overturned. Claws scraped uselessly against reinforced walls. Elias was already moving. Before the third shot fired, he pulled his desk sideways and dropped behind it. The plasma bolt passed through the space where his head had been a heartbeat earlier. The desk shuddered but held. Down, he shouted, not loud but sharp. A few students heard him. Fewer listened. The drones rotated, tracking movement, big movement, fast movement, threatening movement. They ignored the still shapes cowering low. They ignored Elias. He risked a glance over the desk. The drones fired again, targeting the charging students first. That told him everything he needed to know. Machines, he murmured. Still dumb. He grabbed a stylus from his desk, weighed it once, then threw. The stylus struck a drone's lens at just the right moment. During its targeting recalibration, sparks flew. The drone spun wildly, crashing into another. Both fell to the floor in a tangle of smoking metal. A stunned silence rippled through the survivors. Elias didn't pause. "Stay down," he said again, calmer now. "They're prioritizing movement. Big targets." A trembling, four-armed student stared at him. "How do you know?" Elias crouched, eyes never leaving the remaining drones. "Because," he said quietly, "we've had these in our schools before." When the drones shifted, its lens flicking toward him, its internal systems recalculated. For the first time, Elias felt the faint prickle of attention, the machine noticing the anomaly. He straightened slightly, meeting its gaze. "Yeah," he whispered. "There you go." The drone's threat assessment indicator spiked, and this time, the targeting reticle locked onto the quiet desk in the back row. When the drones chose targets, the drones turned toward Elias all at once. For lenses burned red, their internal gyros humming as they adjusted firing angles. To the machine logic governing them, Elias Ward had stopped being background noise. He had interfered. He had damaged assets. He had demonstrated predictive behavior. Threat level escalating. The rest of the class saw only that the quiet human had somehow drawn the drone's attention. A few students stared in disbelief. Others scrambled farther away from him, desperate to put distance between themselves and the new target. Elias ignored them. He slid backward, staying low, keeping the overturned desk between himself and the nearest drone. The plasma bolt came exactly when he expected it, half a second after the drone's lens brightened. The desk absorbed the blast, material screaming as it vaporized layer by layer. "Reload window," Elias muttered. He moved before the second drone fired, rolling across the floor as heat scorched the air above him. His mind ran faster than his body, assembling patterns from chaos. These weren't modern combat drones. They were old, updated, maybe, but built on legacy decision trees. Designed to intimidate, designed to overwhelm, designed to test. "Why are they focusing on you?" someone shouted. Elias didn't answer immediately. He slammed his palm against a fallen chair, sending it skidding across the floor. The drones pivoted instinctively, tracking the sudden motion. Their targeting systems lagged for a fraction of a second as they recalculated priorities. "That was enough. Because I'm moving," he said, "and because I'm not panicking." A massive, horned student tried to charge a drone head-on, roaring defiance. The drone fired without hesitation. The student went down hard, armor cracked, breath wheezing in a way that made several classmates recoil in horror. Elias' jaw tightened. "Stop running," he shouted. "Get low. Stay still unless I tell you otherwise." Some obeyed. Some couldn't. Panic was louder than reason. The drones fired again. Elias grabbed a data tablet from the floor and hurled it high. 3 drones tracked it instantly, their lenses snapping upward. The fourth hesitated, its logic conflicted by the multiple targets. Elias sprang up, crossed 3 meters in 2 strides, and slammed his foot into the drone's underside. He hit a maintenance seam, exactly where he'd seen it on 100 schematics. The drone smashed into the ceiling, sparking violently. "Ow!" The instructor gasped, crouched behind a console. "Human, how do you know where to strike?" Elias didn't slow. "Because your training models are museum pieces." The words came out harsher than he intended. A memory flashed unbidden. Sirens over a coastal city. Teachers herding children into reinforced hallways. Drones screaming overhead while adults prayed the countermeasures would hold. He shoved it away. "Focus. Now." The remaining drones adapted. They spread out, forming a loose perimeter, minimizing cross-interference. Their fire became more deliberate, forcing Elias to stay mobile. His muscles burned. His breath stayed controlled. "Two left," someone whispered. "No," Elias said. 3. One's playing dead. As if in response, the damaged drone surged back to life, firing wildly. The shot missed Elias by centimeters, scorching his sleeve. Pain flared, sharp and hot. He hissed, but didn't stop. He yanked a loose power conduit from the wall, sparks cascading around him. The drone fired again. Elias ducked and shoved the conduit into the drone's exposed intake. The machine screamed, a high, electronic wail, as its systems overloaded. It dropped, smoking. The last two drones retreated upward, seeking altitude. That was new. They're learning, Elias said grimly. The drone's lenses flickered, recalculating threat priorities. Elias felt it again, that cold, assessing attention. He was no longer just a target. He was the problem. A voice crackled over the room's emergency speakers. Not the instructors. Assessment proceeding, it said. Flat. Artificial. Human response exceeds projected thresholds. The class froze. Elias looked up slowly. Assessment. Correct, the voice replied. Autonomous escalation authorized to determine human compliance under lethal stress. A wave of stunned silence rolled through the room. This was a test, Elias said. Yes. His hands clenched. So it was the last one, he said quietly, mostly to himself. The drones fired again. Elias moved without thinking, sprinting toward the center of the room as plasma tore through the space behind him. He leapt, grabbed the frame of the hanging light panel, and swung hard, slamming his boots into a drone's casing. The machine shattered against the far wall. The final drone hesitated. For the first time, it didn't fire. Its lens pulsed, uncertain. Elias landed heavily, chest heaving. He stared at the drone, eyes hard. Don't, he warned it. The drone recalculated. Threat classification, containment risk. It fired. Elias dove, too slow. The plasma bolt struck his shoulder, spinning him to the floor. Pain exploded through his arm. He bit back a scream, rolling to a stop amid smoke and sparks. The class watched, horrified. Elias pushed himself up on one knee, blood soaking his sleeve. Okay, he breathed. Now I'm done being polite. He looked straight at the drone. Your move. What humans call restraint. Pain tried to take Elias down. He didn't let it. The plasma burn along his shoulder screamed every time he moved, heat sinking deep into muscle and bone. His left arm hung heavy and useless, nerves still ringing. He forced his breathing slow, steady, the way he'd been taught long before space stations and galactic academies. Panic wastes oxygen. Panic makes mistakes. The final drone hovered above him, lens pulsing red, uncertain now. Its targeting algorithms churned, threat matrices rewriting themselves in real time. Elias was no longer behaving like prey. The class watched in stunned silence. No one ran. No one shouted. They were all watching the human bleed and still rise. Elias pushed his feet. You should have stopped, he said quietly, his voice carrying despite the smoke. When you had the chance. The drone fired. Elias moved into the shot. The plasma bolt grazed his ribs instead of his heart, searing cloth and flesh. He grunted, slammed his good hand against the floor, and triggered the emergency power release panel he'd pried loose moments earlier. The room went dark. Not black, emergency red. The drone hesitated, its optical systems recalibrating for low light. That hesitation lasted less than a second. It was enough. Elias charged. He vaulted over a fallen desk, used its metal frame as a springboard, and slammed bodily into the drone. His shoulders screamed in protest, but momentum carried him through. They hit the wall together. He wrapped his legs around the drone's chassis and jammed his fingers into its rear access port. Sparks bit into his skin as he tore free a bundle of wires. The drone convulsed, firing wildly. Bolts scorched the ceiling, carving glowing scars into the walls. Students screamed and flattened themselves against the floor. Override, Elias growled, ripping the wires apart. Override, override. The drone went limp. They fell together, Elias hitting the floor hard, breath exploding from his lungs. Silence followed. No hum, no glow, just smoke, flickering emergency lights, and the sound of a dozen terrified breaths. Elias lay there for a long moment, staring at the ceiling. His vision swam. He felt the burn now, every nerve awake and angry. He laughed once, short and humorless. Yeah, he muttered. That tracks. Medical alarms finally shrieked to life. The classroom doors unlocked with a heavy clunk. Security drones, sleeker, unmistakably newer, swarmed in, weapons lowered but ready. The instructor staggered to Elias' side, eyes wide and unfocused. "Human, you what you did." Elias sat up slowly, waving away a medic who tried to grab his injured arm. "Don't," he said. "Give me a second." He got his feet on his own. Around him, alien students stared. Some looked shaken. Others looked afraid. A few looked like something else entirely, something close to reverence. One of them finally found his voice. "You could have done that the whole time." Elias looked at him. "Yes." The answer was simple, honest. "Then why didn't you?" Another demanded. "Why sit there? Why say nothing?" Elias glanced at the ruined classroom, the scorched walls, the melted desks, the blood on the floor. "Because," he said, "this is what happens when humans stop being careful." A new presence filled the room, cold and precise. A hologram shimmered into existence above the instructor's console, tall, faceless, unmistakably authoritative. "A council observer." Elias Ward it intoned. "You have exceeded all projected behavioral parameters." Elias wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. "You tried to kill students." "Incorrect," the observer replied. "We initiated a controlled escalation." "Controlled," Elias echoed. His eyes hardened. "You call that controlled?" "Your species presents a unique risk profile," the observer continued. "You adapt too quickly. You survive scenarios that should result in collapse. This assessment was necessary." Elias laughed again, louder this time. There was no humor in it. "We already took that test," he said. "On our own planet." Images flickered behind his eyes. Cities burning, autonomous swarms blotting out the sky. Humans fighting machines they'd built themselves. Children trained to hide. Teachers trained to stall. Civilians learning where to stand when the machines decided to optimize. "You think we're quiet because we're weak," Elias said. "We're quiet because if we weren't, you'd all be dead already." The observer said nothing. Elias turned away from it, looking instead at his classmates. "This," he said, gesturing at the wreckage, "is restraint. Not what I did. What I didn't do." Security drones moved closer. Not aggressively, but cautiously. The instructor swallowed. "Council protocol requires you to be detained." Elias nodded. "Yeah, I figured." As they escorted him out, the class parted silently. No one met his eyes, except one student near the back, small and shaking. "Thank you," they whispered. Elias paused. "Next time," he said gently, "get low sooner." The doors closed behind him. Above the academy, in chambers far from classrooms and blood-stained floors, the council began to understand something they had never truly considered. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent. Humans were dangerous because they knew exactly how much violence to hold back. The day the galaxy learned why humans stay quiet. Elias Ward was not placed in restraints. That alone told him the council was afraid. The chamber was vast and circular, its walls alive with shifting constellations. Representatives of a dozen civilizations appeared as holograms or sat behind translucent barriers tuned to their atmospheric needs. At the center stood a single platform. Elias was guided to it and left alone. His shoulder had been wrapped, burned flesh sealed by medical foam, but the pain lingered. He welcomed it. Pain was honest. The council observer who had spoken in the classroom manifested again, its form sharpening, edges precise. "You endangered a classified evaluation," it said. Elias tilted his head. "You endangered children." A ripple passed through the chamber. Unease translated across species lines. "The assessment was necessary," the observer replied. "Your species demonstrates abnormal survivability and resistance to autonomous suppression." Elias exhaled slowly. "That's because we built those systems first. Then we lived through them." Images appeared in the air. Earth's history, unfiltered and brutal. Cities half-devoured by machine swarms. Soldiers fighting drones with jury-rigged weapons. Civilians sheltering underground while algorithms optimized casualty curves. "We didn't win because we were stronger," Elias said. "We won because we refused to panic. We learned how machines think, how they hesitate, how they fail. One counselor, a towering being of crystal facets, leaned forward. Then why hide it? Elias met its gaze. Because every species that sees power wants to measure it, control it, or erase it. Silence followed. Another counselor spoke, voice trembling despite its size. Your people allowed themselves to be categorized as non-threatening. Yes, Elias said. On purpose. The observer flickered. That deception undermines interstellar trust. Elias' expression hardened. You tested us with live weapons in a classroom. Don't talk to me about trust. The chamber stirred again. Data streams scrolled rapidly as counselors cross-checked records, academy protocols, hidden subroutines, authorization chains. The truth unraveled faster than anyone expected. The observer's voice dropped in pitch. The evaluation exceeded permitted parameters. Elias snorted. That tends to happen when you underestimate humans. A new figure appeared. Older, slower. Its voice weighted with authority. What would you have us do now, human? Elias considered the question. This was the moment. The one every species feared, when a measured civilization decided whether to roar. He didn't raise his voice. Stop testing us, he said. Stop poking us to see what happens when we break. And if we don't? Another counselor asked. Elias' eyes flicked briefly to the holographic stars on the chamber wall. Then the next time a machine decides you're inefficient, he said calmly, you won't have anyone who knows how to pull it apart with their bare hands. That did it. The council moved fast after that. Investigations launched. The academy program was suspended. Autonomous evaluation protocols were frozen across 3 sectors. Humans were reclassified, not as a warrior species, not as a threat, as a containment-level civilization. Elias was released within the hour. Weeks later, he returned to the academy. The classroom had been rebuilt. New walls, new desks, no ceiling ports, no drones. Elias took his old seat in the back row. No one else sat near him. The instructor, new, carefully polite, clear their throat. Today's lesson is conflict de-escalation. A few students glanced back at Elias, then quickly looked away. During the break, a small group approached him hesitantly. Is it true, one asked, that humans fought machines for generations? Elias shrugged. Long enough. Another swallowed. And you won. Elias thought of Earth, of scars and cities and silence where sirens once screamed. We survived, he said. That's different. The bell chimed. As the class settled, Elias looked out the window at the stars, vast, indifferent, beautiful. For the first time, the galaxy was watching humans not for what they claimed to be, but for what they had chosen not to show. Elias opened his datapad, just another student in just another class. Quiet, careful, and no longer underestimated.